Hey, this is Caryn.
And this is Jill.
And you're listening to Screen Girl Squad. One thing I'm curious about, well, I'll get to it later. We'll talk about it later.
All right. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We just watched It Part 1. Mm-hmm. So this is the newer version of the film that came out 2 years ago.
Yes.
And Part 2 is coming out this weekend. Yeah.
By the time you hear this, you will be able to see Part 2 in the theater.
Yeah. So we wanted to watch Part 1 and refresh ourselves before Part 2 came out. Mm-hmm. And this way we get to talk about it with all of you.
Yay!
Which is awesome. This was second viewing for both of us. We actually saw it for the first time together.
Yes.
And hadn't watched it again since, but I've been wanting to because I really liked it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun we got to watch it both times together.
Well, and I wasn't sure how I would like it the second time around because we saw it with a couple friends of ours and one of them made the movie so enjoyable by laughing at all the most inappropriate times.
Which he does. We can talk about him. He'll love it. Mark laughs at the, no matter what movie we go see, he laughs at the most inappropriate moments. And it just makes my day. Avengers, for example, the newest one that just came out. Mm-hmm. After that very first scene, and it's all sad and everything. No, he laughs. Thanks, Marky Mark. But yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah. So I was worried. I was worried that it was going to be one of those things where the experience of seeing it in the theater with a particular group of people is what contributed to the enjoyment of the film. Mm. But to be honest, I really liked it the second time around.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, and I have a thing with, for me, what makes or breaks a movie is my second watch. The first time you see it, you're so wrapped up in, I've never seen this before, and this is cool, and whatever. And the second time you watch it, I feel like you watch it with different eyes. And so you notice more, things that maybe you would have glossed over the first time. So there'll be movies that I, love in the theater, and then I watch again, and I don't like them as much. Or there'll be movies where I was like, that was okay, and then I watch it again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I loved it so much.
Interesting.
So I think the second watch is
critical.
The telltale. Yes. Mm-hmm.
What's an example of one that grew on you?
The King Arthur one that just came out with Charlie Hunnam in it.
Oh, the one that, to me, and granted, I watched it on an airplane, so my assessment of it is completely colored by that. I felt like that was a 2-hour-long music video. Yeah. And I did not enjoy it.
I feel like it's a really polarized movie. You either loved it or you hated it. And I liked it the first time we saw it. And then, it's just grown on me more and more.
How many times have you watched it now?
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who don't rewatch movies. Mm-hmm. They don't rewatch TV shows. They don't reread books. And I am not that kind of person.
I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, clearly if it grows on you.
Just saying. Yeah.
Well, and I just find a certain kind of comfort in rewatching or rereading something. You already know how it's going to end. And so, like you said, you can almost get lost in the story a different way. Mm-hmm. And I think it is pretty telling with horror movies, especially if it is still enjoyable the second time around when you know where all the scares are and you know how it ends up. And you're not, pulling out your phone and doing the New York Times crossword or something.
Right.
So.
Yep.
Holds up the second time around.
Absolutely, which is a true test of a good movie.
Now, speaking of watching something again and again and again and again, in addition to watching this one twice together, Jill and I also watched the 1990 miniseries adaptation of It probably about 12 times.
Or more.
Yeah.
I mean, we watched it a lot.
Conservative estimate.
Conservative estimate 12 times. Yeah. I think that's fair. Yeah, for sure.
A friend of ours had it on Laserdisc, which...
she had a cool basement.
Yeah.
And her mom always made amazing snacks.
Oh my gosh, those cherry brownies.
Yeah, you loved those. I don't like cherries. But she always had good snacks. Mm-hmm. And She had a big screen TV, tons of couch space, and a Laserdisc player, which we thought was the coolest thing in the whole world.
Because it was the 90s.
So, shout out to Kim. We loved your basement and watching it. And we had a really good group of friends growing up with, like, a good mix of boys and girls. Mm-hmm. And so there was always, like, some sort of flirting happening or who was dating who in that week. And
yeah, that basement saw a lot of, like, dramatic post-breakup moments.
Oh, my gosh. All kinds of... I just thought of yours.
Forever Young?
Yes, that's exactly what I thought of.
Flashback to 1998. Caryn has recently either broken up with or been broken up with the boy that she was constantly dating and
constantly breaking up with and getting back together with. Yeah.
And she's playing DJ on Kim's, like, rad stereo system. And she puts on... I don't know why I'm talking about myself in the third person. Probably because I don't relate to my junior high school self at all. When I reread the diary, I just want to strangle myself. I was the worst.
It's like John Mulaney said, 13-year-olds are the worst people.
Pretty much. Yeah. So I put on Forever Young by Alphaville, which begins with this, like, big swell. And I turn around right at the swell, and he walks in, and we lock eyes, and we just have this moment of, like, lightning energy stuff that just felt very dramatic and appropriate.
Because we had that friend group where we were constantly swapping partners, but still inviting everyone to stuff, which just made all kinds of awkwardness.
Well, and that's pretty much my life. Like, once you're in, you're pretty much in. So, I don't let go of my friends very easily.
We are still friends with most of these boys that were in this basement.
Yeah.
So...
And the ones that are gone, we still love you. We just don't see you as much. So.
Well, not all of them. Most of them.
Most of them. Anyway. The computer keeps telling me every time we laugh shrilly that it's detected too much feedback and is shutting off our monitors.
Suck it, computer. We'll laugh if we want to laugh.
Stop censoring our joy. Anyway, so as we watched, this adaptation, which I guess is the first true film adaptation because the other one was technically a TV miniseries.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the miniseries came out in 1990. I was 6. I definitely didn't watch it as a child on TV.
No, I think we all watched it for the first time together in junior high. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And as a junior high school student, it creeped me the freak out.
Oh, absolutely.
Tim Curry scared the bejesus out of me.
Well, understandably so. He's Tim Curry. But
so perfect.
Well, and there was definite creepy moments. So many people I know are afraid of clowns because of that film.
Yeah, which I know pisses off a lot of actual clowns.
Right. Which, yes, I know is upsetting for a lot of actual clowns. But... he did such a good job of making that thing scary.
Yeah.
Which I was trying to think of as we were watching the movie, another, like, horror film that has turned people off of such a specific thing. And I don't know that I could think of one. Can you think of one? Like, that affected an entire generation's fear. Like that one did. Like, a fear of clowns is so commonplace now.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would have been before this movie. And I don't know that I could think of anything else.
Yeah. Well, and I only know one person who, in my opinion, has a legit fear of clowns for an actual reason. And it's because when she was a little girl, her dentist would skip on the Novocaine and charge her parents anyway. And so she'd be sitting there in the dental chair with, like... all of this dental stuff happening and the pain of getting cavities drilled out and stuff. And on the ceiling, because it was a pediatric dentist, they had pictures of clowns. Oh. So she associates clowns with pain and terror.
Totally understandable.
Yeah, that's legit.
Well, and some people really do have legit reasons, don't get me wrong. But I think this movie really did spark that for a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been afraid of them. And I'm not, like, afraid of them. Like, I really like seeing clowns in person, actually. So, like, I enjoy when you encounter someone who's honestly a clown somewhere with the face paint and everything. I think it's...
We grew up with a kid whose family is clowns. Did you know that?
No.
John Bute's Family's Clowns. He used to ride a unicycle and make balloon animals.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I guess maybe arachnophobia? Maybe?
But fear of spiders has always been a thing. Like,
Everyone's afraid of spiders.
I don't
anyway,
think that movie made it be a thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, I think they made that movie because it was already a thing.
Yeah, because it was so common already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. If anyone else can think of one, tell us.
We would love to hear from you, because I was racking my brain the whole time we were watching this movie, trying to think of something else that incited that fear.
Yeah, that traumatized an entire generation of Americans.
It is possible, because my mom cannot listen to the song Blue Moon because of An American Werewolf in London.
Oh.
Because that's the song that plays when he, like, changes for the first time. She, like, hates that song. So it's possible that people of that generation, that song could be a trigger, because that was a pretty terrifying movie at the time. You know, like,
it still is.
It's still really good. Yeah, incredible. But it was such a haunting. But it's not that they're, like, afraid of a thing. It's like this makes them think of that movie that then scared, you know, which... But yeah, so we love this movie. We've watched the old one so many times. We've quoted it for years and years. Don't Break the Circle is our big... We used to all hold hands at the end of that movie as an excuse to hold hands.
With boys.
And, and, you know, always say, don't break the circle. And we all had to, like, hold hands for the whole end of... And who got to hold whose hand was a big deal.
Being 13.
Yeah.
So, for, like, the 10 people who aren't already familiar with the premise of it, either from the 1990 miniseries or from the Stephen King novel, quick spoiler-free synopsis?
There's some kids, losers. They call themselves that, too. It's okay. That they call themselves the Losers Club. And they all become friends one summer. And... kids start disappearing in their town, so they start trying to figure out what happens. And they all get haunted by this clown. Mm-hmm. And mystery and mayhem ensues.
Yes. Love that. Mystery and mayhem. And scariness.
Indeed.
So, putting aside our, love of the original miniseries, which, by the way, Kelly and I rewatched kind of recently, and... it's definitely solidly made and is a good story, but I didn't find it scary at all as an adult.
No, not at all. I made our friend Michelle rewatch it, too, before the last one came out. I can't remember if Mark watched it with us or not. I want to say yes. And my roommate Rachel, who hates scary movies, and she was fine. So if she's fine, it was not scary.
Yeah. Well, and that one had to be made for TV. More.
Yeah, so made for TV, made it a little mellower. And then I think just rewatch factor in general, not a lot of movies hold up because of campiness and things that it's hard to, keep terrorizing a certain age group. Yeah. So... yeah, definitely it has its creepy moments, though.
Yeah.
Like, and I think if I hadn't watched it so many times when we were younger, it might have still, like, creeped me out a little. But not, like, scary necessarily, but more just, like, a little tense.
Maybe a little unsettling.
Right, right. Like, I wouldn't say it would keep me up at night or make me...
But as a kid... Dang.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure we had to go to the bathroom together when watching this movie, so...
Well, that's something that I think the new one does pretty well, too, is there... Well, maybe we should go ahead and rate it on scariness and enjoyment while we're talking about this, but there are a ton of things in this film, just by nature of the fact that they're scaring children, that they're things that could easily give you complexes and phobias, like... I suppose I should save it for the spoilers, but there's a lot of stuff in there that, like, I definitely, when I got up and used the bathroom after the film, was thinking about some of the parts of the movie. So, so it's kind of one of those slow burn movies, I think, where maybe it wasn't so scary for you in the theater, but when you go home later, there's that lingering unease.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into ratings.
Sure.
So, one thing I wanted to know about with your recent epic road trip is I feel like road trips have the best snacks.
True story.
What was the snack that kept you going on that trip to South Dakota?
Orange Kit Kats.
Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah.
Like, are they orange flavored or just
they're like
colored?
white chocolate dyed orange. And I don't know why it makes them better, but it makes them better.
Well, normally they're milk chocolate, and white chocolate definitely has a different flavor.
And I love anything orange, so that helps. But it's not orange flavored because I don't like chocolate oranges. What? I know, that's where we differ. I can't. I don't want fruit in my chocolate, except for chocolate dipped strawberries. That's okay.
Well, and I can't normally do white chocolate very well.
Yeah,
it's very
so you might
sweet.
not like the orange Kit Kats. But
and I say this as a
them.
person that over Memorial Day weekend, I ate like a half-gallon bag of sour, like shoelace things from It's Sugar. Yeah. So I can handle like some serious sugar, but I feel like white chocolate is a little bit too sweet. But I'd be willing to try those orange Kit Kats.
They're really great. Or Rachel made me Mallomars.
What?
I know.
Okay, for the sake of our audience, because
so good.
We recently discovered what Mallomars are.
Yeah.
What is a Mallomar, Jill?
So it's like a graham cracker cookie with marshmallow dipped in dark chocolate. And my roommate Rachel loves to bake and makes the most amazing things, and she made me the most amazing Mallomars. And yeah, it's because of Gilmore Girls that this whole thing started, but I don't even care.
Okay, well, I think that I can more heartily agree with Mallomars than something made primarily of white chocolate. So let's rate it on Mallomars.
Mallomars it is.
And next time Rachel makes Mallomars, I would appreciate
Well, and there
was
some left over, and I think they went to Michelle's house, and I need to find out because I want to eat them.
You leave my house and go knock on her door.
I know. Give me my cookies.
So on a scale of 1 to 5 Mallomars, because we always use a food we enjoy to rank how well we enjoyed the film, what would your enjoyment rating be?
I'm torn between 4 and 5. Because I wouldn't say it was like a flawless movie.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely a couple slow moments that I found myself like checking my phone. But I really, really liked it. I think I'm going to go with 4.
Yeah. Yep. 4 Mallomars.
4. What do you say?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I really enjoy this movie. I know like a lot of people gave it kind of bad reviews and stuff. A bunch of people even argued that it wasn't horror, which I think takes far too strict of a definition of the genre, but I think it's fun. Like, the kid who plays Richie, Finn Wolfhard, is from Stranger Things. And that kid is a motor mouth, so just offensive, like nonstop jokes just at the expense of everyone around him. He was hilarious.
And according to the trivia, made up most of his line.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that kid was...
Yeah.
All of the kids did such a fantastic job.
All of them were incredible.
Sometimes child actors annoy the snot out of me. Like
they try too hard.
Yeah, when they're not even doing a good job and they're just there because they're cute and they have a lisp or something. But the kids in this film actually did just phenomenal work.
I can't wait to see what they all do in the years to come.
Yeah.
So...
Especially the kid who played Eddie, who's also in Shazam, which this is now like the 3rd time Shazam has come up on this podcast.
I guess I should watch it.
You really should. It's so good.
Well, and I want to. I'm so in love with Zachary Levi.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he did Broadway after all, so...
What?
He's in comic book movies and he did Broadway. He's the perfect man.
And he was Chuck. Yeah. And he's pretty cute in The Marvelous Miss Maisel.
He's just adorable all around.
He's great.
Plus, he's just like a stellar human in general, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's always nice.
Yeah.
I hate when you find out some actor that you enjoy or actress that you enjoy watching is kind of a bag of expletives.
Yes. No, he's really great. And he always is like trying to go above and beyond for his fans. And he's a really like big proponent of like mental health and all kinds of stuff. And I just think he's really cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so watch Shazam. It's my favorite DC movie ever. It's that good.
Excellent.
So, anyway, so yeah, I think part of what made it so enjoyable was the cast. And the kids actually seemed to have really good chemistry with each other.
Oh, yeah. Like, they definitely seemed to, like, genuinely care about each other.
Yeah.
Whether or not that was acting or they did, who's to say. But it was great.
Well, and I have to assume the director was smart and did things like had the child actor equivalent of a team building activity.
Right.
You know, to help build that camaraderie. But
which I always love hearing about. Did you know in The Outsiders, they gave like really nice leather-bound scripts to all the Socs, and they got like really nice dressing rooms. And then all the guys who played the greasers had like really crappy paperback copies and had like crappy dressing rooms as a way to like divide them.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, it also sort of sucks.
For sure. But it was like...
You're like, I'm Patrick Swayze. I just have a leather-bound.
Right. But it was like the director's way of, you know, separating them. So there was this like hostility from the greasers to the Socs.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of, I assume that kind of thing happened.
I would hope so.
And just totally rang through. So. Yeah. And from what I understand, like this project was stuck in what they call development hell for ages and ages.
They've been talking about making it for years, right? Like, I've been hearing about it for so long.
Well, and I remember always hearing, oh, yeah, they're going to remake it, and they're going to use the kids who played the kids in the TV miniseries as the adult versions, except for Jonathan Brandis, obviously. And now I think even those actors are probably too old because it was stuck in just pre-production for so long. And the person who was going to be directing it for a long time and wrote the script that largely became the script that this is based on, he was going to put in some stuff that I think would have made it less enjoyable for me personally, like some bestiality and things like that. But,
some things from the book that were not things I wanted to see.
Yeah. But
it would have been interesting, though, because, like, Seth Green was in the original one. And I would think he's about the same age as the people who are in it now.
Yeah, maybe. Is he, like, in his mid-40s?
I would think, or close enough to.
Yeah.
I love Seth Green.
I know.
I would totally have loved to have Seth Green as me. I can't think of who else was in the original, though, that would be. I mean, Jonathan Brandis is dead, sadly. But I can't remember who else was the other kids.
Yeah, my brain keeps feeding me the kids who were in the stand. Or not the stand. The kids who were
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me.
Because that's what I was like, yeah, Jerry O'Connell. No. Other dead body movie.
Bottom line, we super enjoy this movie. Like, if you haven't seen it yet, even if you're not a horror fan, I think you'd really enjoy it.
As long as you don't get squeamish and you're okay with young children saying a lot of dirty and offensive things.
Oh, yeah. Like, probably just 35 F-bombs come out of Richie's mouth.
It earns its R rating. Yeah.
Yeah, for gore and profanity.
Absolutely.
I'm so desensitized to profanity that it took me a couple minutes to remember the word for that. So speaking of, even people that don't like horror movies liking it, what about on a fright rating? Jill and I always rate movies on Scariness using a scale of 1 to 5 scary things from the movie. Obviously, creepy clowns.
Sure.
So scale of 1 to 5 creepy clowns. What are your thoughts?
I would go with, 3.
Yeah.
Because it was definitely creepy and unsettling, but it's not going to keep me up tonight.
Yeah. I think 3 is fair. They use a lot of different types of horror techniques. Like, there's a couple jump scares in there. There are some things that are just downright unnerving, and we'll talk about those. The scariest thing in the movie, in my opinion, is the way that Bill Skarsgård portrays Pennywise the clown.
I absolutely think that, and for me, the scariest thing is that humans are monsters too.
Yes.
Which we can get into, but that's one of the things that's always really hard for me with this movie is what's worse, the people in their real lives or this clown trying to eat them? It's kind of hard to differentiate sometimes.
Yeah. Which was probably what Stephen King was
absolutely.
trying to say in his
he does novel. That a lot, yeah.
Yeah, he's really good at showing us how the scariest things in the world are other people.
By trying to scare you with something else, he sneaks in that the scariest things in the world are the people.
Yeah, which I love that in horror anyway. Like Walking Dead, the scariest thing is not the zombies. It's definitely the horrible things that the other bands of survivors, they all do to each other.
For sure.
So yeah, 3 out of 5 dancing clowns. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So everything else I want to talk about is a big fat spoiler.
I know, so let's just jump right into this.
So, and fair warning, obviously, this is based on a novel by Stephen King as well, and the 1990 miniseries. So they're all really closely tied together. Consider yourself warned that we're not just spoiling It Part 1. We're spoiling all of it. So, spoilers.
So this movie starts out with one of the main characters, Bill, and he's in bed, and he's clearly ill. It's raining, and his little brother comes in and is like, Bill, I want you to play with me, I'm bored. And Bill's like, here, let me make you a paper boat. And makes him a boat and tells Georgie, his little brother, Georgie, that he has to go get cement, wax out of the basement so that he can seal the boat so that it'll float, because paper and water does not a good floating device make. So Georgie goes into the creepy basement, which, like, you should never go in a basement ever. And it's like
just never
the creepiest basement in the world. Like,
yeah, it has those stairs that I hate where there's no backs.
The slats.
Yeah, so people can grab your feet.
Yep, that's not okay. And then there's like stone heads sitting on a shelf for some reason. Like, why is that a thing? And there's like glowing lights in the corner that look all creepy.
They look like eyes.
Yeah.
Like glowing eyes.
Yeah.
Watching Georgie as he gets the wax.
He takes the wax up and they seal it up. And Georgie goes out to sail his boat down the gutter.
Yeah.
And he's like chasing it as it floats along the stream.
It's a torrential rainstorm, so like the kind that we only see here in Utah maybe like 3 times a year, where the gutters are overflowing and
and they live in Maine, so I get the impression this happens there a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, rain. So he's out there in like his rain slicker and galoshes and hat, like he's set for the rainstorm. It's bright yellow, so you just see this yellow kid running down the street. And when we went to see this in the movie, this is when Mark laughed so hilariously loud, is because he's running and watching the boat and looking at the ground and runs into one of those construction horses.
And just like
face plant, or just falls backwards. And
totally
it's just, you hear the like tink as he hits the thing and falls backwards.
And Mark just roared with laughter.
And it made the whole theater laugh, which was fantastic. And so then as he falls down, his boat goes in a drain.
Yeah.
So the original starts out just the same way. So anyone who saw the original, we all were like, oh no, Georgie, don't go after the boat. Just let it go. It's fine. But he goes and like bends down to look in the drain and see if he can see the boat, and out pops Pennywise.
Yeah. And the drain is enormous. And here in Utah, we have pretty little drains, and most of them are flat in the ground. They're like sewer grates that are flat. I don't think in very many places we have the ones that actually stick out on the curbs, but I have 2 uncles in Texas, and one of them was telling me that they get like essentially flash flooding from the rain, and so their sewers, their little sewer grates or whatever, are like 8 inches tall.
Yeah.
Definitely large enough for a child to interact with a inhuman clown through it.
Yeah, they're like, you know, he's talking to Pennywise. Pennywise pops up out of the grate and just starts talking to him. He's like, hey, Georgie, how's it going? And gets all creepy, and they have this whole conversation about boats and the circus and they like popcorn. And
we have to talk about the way that they made Pennywise look. They deviated from the 1990 miniseries, so he does not look the same way that Tim Curry did, but they made him look closer to his description in the book.
Yeah, and the 1990s Tim Curry was just a regular clown looking, you know, like the thing you would say at the circus. He had the big fluffy red wig and the really white clown makeup with the smile painted on.
And the red nose.
The red nose and, you know, yellow silky outfit with the big puff balls on the front and the big red clown shoes. Like, he was the full clown. And this Pennywise, if you want to...
He has like a white painted face and these black lines on his face that accentuate his cheekbones, and and these big red painted lips. And in my opinion, and a very tall white painted forehead, and then kind of a puffy orangish red wig that comes out the back and the sides. But the thing that makes him look the most creepy, there's two things. Number one, I don't know if Bill Skarsgård just has the world's biggest eyes or if they enhanced it somehow.
Nope, those are his eyes.
They are gigantic.
Yep.
And I read that he can really make them look different directions.
I was just listening to an interview with Bill Hader, and he was in the part 2. He plays grown-up Richie. And he was talking about like working with Bill Skarsgård and how like unsettling he was. But then like he would just be cracking jokes and talking. And the first time he met him, he was like, so how did they get your eyes to do that thing? And he was like, what, this? And just like did it. And he was just like,
yeah, because he'll be talking to Georgie and his eyes will just sort of start drifting apart.
Like he can just move one away in another
So
direction. It's, really unsettling.
And so the other thing about him is they gave him these kind of buck teeth that look like rabbit teeth. You know, rabbits have those two really long teeth. So it immediately looks inhuman, like inhumanly long teeth. And the teeth that they use made Bill Skarsgård drool constantly. So as he's talking to Georgie, he's literally salivating over this kid that he is trying to convince to come into the sewer so he can eat him.
And there's a really great moment where they're having a conversation, and it's like Pennywise gets caught up in staring at Georgie like, I'm going to eat you.
Yeah.
Like, it's like when the cartoons would watch their steak come in on and they'd like float and just stare at him. Like it was kind of like that. Like he was like leaning in and just staring.
Yeah.
And we were watching with Caryn's husband, Kelly, and Kelly was just like audibly like, huh. And we paused for a minute. Caryn went in the kitchen and Kelly said that was the most unsettling part of the whole movie for him was the way he just like gets distracted by Georgie. Like he's not even listening. He's just like, I'm going to get you.
Yeah. He's like thinking about eating him. Mm-hmm. So like right off the bat, that's, like I said, that's the creepiest thing in the movie. Like, I don't think half of the scary scenes that we'll describe later would have had the effect that they did if they hadn't laid that perfect groundwork for exactly how animalistic Pennywise was. Like he's not human, he's not a clown, he's like a wolf going after his prey.
Yep.
It was so good.
It was really, really good.
Yeah.
So that scares Georgie that he like notices that the guy's just like, I'm gonna eat you. So Georgie gets upset and is like, okay, I have to go now, and starts trying to get away. And Pennywise is like, but what about your boat? And Georgie reaches in and Pennywise eats his arm clean off.
His face like leans back and these rows of shark teeth basically come out of his face, like row after row of scary sharp fangs. And he bites Georgie's arm off, which that did not happen in the 90s miniseries, made for TV, obviously.
Oh, no, it, like, cuts out, and then Georgie's just gone.
Yeah.
Like...
But in this one, poor little kid is, like, flailing around for a minute with no arm, and he's bleeding
like,
into the rain.
He's trying to army crawl across the street like he just jumped over some bushes, and... So he's trying to army crawl across the street with one arm, and you can just see this stump and the blood coming out, and it's raining. So there's like a trail of blood, and he just gets dragged back into the sewer.
Yeah.
And you just watch this trail of blood get washed into the sewer.
Yeah.
But the creepy part is that there's an old woman, like, standing on her porch who basically watched this whole thing and just turns around and walks back in her house.
Yeah. And I think the real strength in that scene, again, comes from a kid actor who's doing a bang-up job because the terror and the agony on his face when he's, like, crawling away. And it's so heartbreaking because in the 1991, like Jill said, it just kind of fades to black and you don't actually see an on-screen death. But this made it so clear that Georgie's last 10 seconds alive were the most terrifying moments of his entire life, which is exactly what Pennywise wants. He feasts on fear. So, like, seeing that made it so much harder to watch because you're... Like, that's the worst, right? No one wants their last moments to be...
Well, he is a tiny child.
Oh
like,
gosh.
I would guess 5 or 6. So, which clearly this was filmed in a different time because he was out by himself playing with a boat in the
yes,
rain.
The ladies.
But yeah. But just, terrifying that this tiny, tiny child, I mean, has no idea how to even take care of himself and just gets devoured by this monster.
Oh, awful.
Horrible.
So then it flashes forward like 9 months to June-ish of the following year.
So it starts with Mike, who works on a sheep farm.
Oh, that's right. I blocked this part out. That's why I forgot.
I know. And so they have to kill the sheep. And he has the sheep killing tool. We don't need to go into too much detail. And he can't do it. He can't kill the sheep. And his grandpa gives him this whole speech about how you have to figure out, kid, are you going to be the one in the cage or are you going to be the one pulling the trigger? Because you have to be one or the other. Which is sort of a theme for the movie. Like, are you going to be a victim or are you going to stand up and fight back?
Yeah.
And so, like, I know it was supposed to sound harsh, but at the same time, I think it inspires Mike later in the movie. And so I had a hard time, like, holding his grandpa against him, even though he was being really harsh and trying to make him kill sheep, which is horrible. But I think he was trying to teach him good life lessons, too. So.
Yeah, so rough scene. How much do they show?
The whole thing.
The whole thing. Ugh, yeah. No, I was like, I know what's about to happen. I'm just going to hide.
And I was like, I'm tough. I can take it. Oh, crap. Sheep brains. Like, it was.
So it's pretty graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then it cuts to last day of school.
And it pretty quickly shows you the dynamic between the original, like, 4 boys. Is it the 4 of them that are friends to begin with?
I think so.
So Bill, Richie,
Stan,
Eddie, and Stan. Yeah. They're coming out of class, and Richie's just being ridiculous and saying all kinds of offensive things and talking about banging everybody's moms like he's cooler than he is. And Bill is a stutterer, and so there's all of that. Richie is... Not Richie.
Glasses.
Sorry. Yeah, Richie's got glasses. And then Eddie is, like, timid and shy and
asthmatic.
Germaphobe, asthmatic. Yeah, and that comes out right away.
Stan is Jewish.
Stan is Jewish and is talking about... Is he wearing a yarmulke?
Yeah, and he's talking about
his upcoming bar mitzvah. And so they just... get right into their dynamic really quickly that Richie kind of annoys everyone, but they love him anyway. And
it's like that classic thing, like, he's an asshole, but he's our asshole, so it's fine.
Right. They all are walking through the halls and run into some bullies outside of school.
Yeah.
And the bullies in this movie are so upsetting to me. Like, I don't like bullying in general, but, like, these ones seem like an extra breed of awful.
Yes.
And
the bullies in this film were also really well cast.
Absolutely. And they all just looked like those guys you went to high school with that you were terrified of.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know how they did it, but it was like every dude who's ever creeped you out was one of these 4 boys.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it just...
And I think they might have had one of the hardest jobs in the movie because the dialogue that they had to deliver... Richie has to deliver some pretty insensitive dialogue, too. Like, he's making fun of Stan's religion. He definitely makes some anti-Semitic remarks. He, like, is talking shit on everybody's mom. But the dialogue that the bullies use, like, the level of ethnic and racial slurs that they use, the language that they use to bully Ben... It's the reason I'm not cut out for acting. Like, I could not embody a character that thinks that kind of language is appropriate. It would be hard as hell.
It would be really, really hard to play one of those characters, for sure. And they're young, too. I mean, they've got to be like 16 or 17, maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Ooh, hard.
Yeah, so good job, kids that played the bullies, because you nailed it. I hate all of you.
And they are kids, like we said, we want to see what the other kids grow up and do later. I hope those kids are never in another movie, because if I see them, I'm going to be instantly hating them.
It's
you
like
know,
that poor kid that played Joffrey on Game of Thrones. And
oh
he's
yeah,
like
he
actually
can never
super
do
nice.
anything else.
And people just like hate him. And he's like, but I'm a nice guy.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. But I think that's always a risk you take when you're in a movie. So.
Well, it means you did your job and you did it well, because people can't separate you from the role that you played.
It's true. So anyway, they all start picking on the kids. And they're about to do something horrible, and one of the cops standing outside the school, like, stares them down, and so they drop the kids and walk away.
Yeah, is that Henry Bauer's dad? Is it one of the police dads?
Is.
Yeah.
But we don't know that till later.
Yeah.
So they just drop it and walk away. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere else in the school, Beverly, who's the girl character in the movie, is in the bathroom smoking. And these other girls come in and fill a trash bag full of garbage with water and dump it over the stall on top of her. And she just has this look on her face like, yeah, well...
Yeah.
Like, this clearly happens all the time.
She, like, grabs her backpack and puts it over her head. Like, she knows what's coming. She knows how to prepare for it. Mm-hmm. And she's, like, writing on the wall in marker. I mean, not during this scene, but there's graffiti on the wall and stuff calling whatever the bully girl's name is, something Keen, because she's Keen's pharmacy's daughter, but, like, calling her names and stuff. So it's a pretty regular occurrence that Beverly has to deal with. And when she leaves the school, she runs into another kid who's not faring so well, Ben, who's fairly new to town.
And he's kind of hiding out behind the school.
Yeah.
So she walks out, and he's holding this diorama, and he sees her and drops it.
Yeah.
And is clearly so smitten immediately. It's adorable. It's like the best meet cute I've ever seen in my whole life.
Yeah, the way when she signs his yearbook, like, to be friendly, and he's just gazing at her.
He is enamored. Just staring at her like he's never seen a girl before, and it is the cutest thing in the whole world. So, and he's a little overweight, and you can tell he doesn't have a lot of, like, confidence talking to girls. And so he is just like, holy crap, this really pretty girl is talking to me. And he just, like, can't even handle it.
Yeah.
So she's signing his yearbook. She's being all nice to him. And she's like, by the way, Henry Bowers is on the other side of the school, so you're totally good. You can leave. Everybody knows he's after you. And he's just like, okay. Like, he can't even hardly talk. And he's listening to
New Kids on the Block.
New Kids on the Block. On his Walkman, and she's like, hey, let me hear what you're listening to. And then she's like, oh my gosh, you're listening to New Kids on the Block. And he's totally mortified, and they, like, bond over it. And she's like, it's okay, I won't tell anybody. And it's really cute. And that comes up a couple times during the movie, so that's really fun that they have this inside joke. So then,
and somewhere in this sequence of first introducing the kid, Richie delivers his best line in the whole movie, maybe, which he says, you think that's weird, try tickling your pickle for the first time, which made Jill do a literal spit take.
I was drinking water and I literally spit.
Yes, it's awesome.
I didn't spit on anyone or anything, but yeah. So I mean, your dress, the couch, whatever, everything.
But they pretty quickly establish, like, okay, these kids are not the world's most popular kids. They kind of make each of them check a box as some type of, like, an outsider, you know, like being a different religion or being overweight or something. Like, they kind of establish that each of them sort of has a stigma that's working against them. And
I hadn't picked up on that, but that's very true. Now I'm, like, putting them all in little boxes. And,
yeah. Like, things that I think were very stereotypical during the 80s for people to be made fun of. So, once they kind of establish what all the kids are considered outsiders for, they pretty quickly dive into each of them having an encounter with Pennywise, starting with Mike.
So it starts out with Mike. He's delivering meat because he clearly works for
a butcher,
meat supplier.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's his grandpa, not works for. He works with his grandpa and delivers meat. So he goes to the butcher's, and the door is, like, shaking, and these burned hands are coming out, and then it pops open, and you can just see something, like, hanging in the background behind it. Like, if you guys can think, if you've ever been in, like, a freezer section of a grocery store, or, like, going into the freezer section of something, and there's those big slats of plastic that keep the temperature cold. So the back of a butcher's usually has this slatted plastic. So behind that, you can like see things, but not clearly. So you can see this silhouette of a person just like hanging and twisting.
Yeah, twisting on a meat hook.
You pretty quickly figure out, oh crap, it's wearing a clown outfit.
Yeah.
So you as the audience are like, oh no, we've seen what that guy can do. And he like slowly twists around and just looks at Mike and comes out of the slats, right?
Yeah.
And comes at him.
Yeah.
But then he gets hit by a car.
Or almost, yeah. Henry Bowers and the bullies are bearing down on him in this back alley, and he just barely jumps out of the way. It's almost like Pennywise was trying to distract him while these bullies ran him down. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he narrowly escapes both Pennywise and Henry Bowers and the bullies. So he has his first interaction with Pennywise. And then after that scene, we see Stan. His dad is the rabbi, and he's like, it's not gonna be good for the rabbi's, like, how does it make me look if the rabbi's son can't do this? You haven't been practicing, you're a failure, take my book back to my office because you can't do it anyway. Yeah. Like, really mean to him. Which you can always tell this kid's got self-esteem issues, and clearly this is not helping.
Well, and I think that's pretty true for all of the kids. Like, I don't think a single one of these children has, like, a loving parent that they could go to for help with this crazy situation. And I don't know if that's just to make sure that the children are isolated and kind of have to, like, fend for themselves, or if it's just an extension of that weird thing in Derry where adults
don't
suck.
Pay attention.
Yeah. They, like, are terrible, and they don't pay attention to what's going on, and they don't help when children are being evil to other children. So, yeah, I think literally every parent we see, the only parents we don't see, I think, are Richie's.
I think that's true.
And everyone else's are either harsh or downright abusive.
Mm-hmm. But Richie's obsessed with other people's moms, so there's that.
Yeah.
Forgot where was that? Oh, yeah. So he's taking the book back into his dad's office and walks past this creepy painting of, like, a distorted woman.
Which, why would you have that in your office?
No idea. Like, it's not happy. It's not religious in any way. It's like this creepy, messed up faced woman.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to explain it. It's definitely abstract.
Yeah, her
art.
Proportions are kind of like the Scream, where the face is almost twisting a little bit, and she's very thin. Her hair is pulled back very severely, and she's holding a flute in her hands.
Yeah.
And the picture on the wall is crooked when Stan walks past it, so he straightens the painting, puts the Torah back on the shelf, and turns back around to a thumb. The
painting's empty.
Well, the painting's on the floor.
Oh, that's right.
And he hangs it up on the wall, and it's empty. The woman's not in the painting anymore. And he's turning around, looking, and she's behind him with the flute in her hands and drops it on the floor and attacks him. Mm-hmm. Which, so much disturbing about that scene. I'm afraid of paintings anyway. We don't have any in my house. Like, the art that I plan to eventually hang on the walls. I've lived here forever. I don't have any. None of it's an actual painting with ink. Like, they're reproductions. There's something mystical to me about actual paint.
Interesting.
So it weirds me out.
All right.
It looks like it could move. I feel like it could move.
Sure.
And anyway, this is what I mean about this movie playing on the stuff that if you're...
So do you not like art museums? Just sorry.
I wouldn't like to be in one at night.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I enjoy going to them.
Oh.
And seeing cool art. Because I can't draw for anything, so...
Yeah.
It's awesome to see that talent. But no, not at night.
Yeah. But again, anything at night, right? Like... Yeah. Anything that's supposed to have people in it that doesn't. We've talked about that before.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so lots of creepiness with that scene.
And then after that, Ben is in the library. So Ben is the chubby kid who didn't really have any friends. He was off by himself. He's in the library researching...
The history of Derry.
The history of Derry, which... He's a history buff. He thinks all that stuff's cool. And he's reading through a book about the history of Derry. And it talks about how there was a big explosion that killed 100 kids.
Mm-hmm. On Easter.
And as he's turning the pages, it, like, zooms in on a tree, and, like, a kid's head is in the tree from the explosion.
But the creepiest part of that scene is not the contents of the book that Ben is reading.
Right.
It's that there's this random old lady in the background who, while Ben is reading, is just staring at him with this creepy grin on her face.
Yes.
And they don't draw attention to it.
Nope.
I totally got goosebumps right now remembering that crazy old lady's face.
I saw it the first time we saw it. I didn't notice it this time because I was too busy watching what was going on in the book.
Yeah.
So it's one of those super subtly creepy things that you don't always see.
Yeah.
Which this movie is full of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after he closes the creepy book, there's a random red balloon just chilling, floating along by itself and leading him down a side hallway. And interestingly, when he gets up from the table and he's not looking at the creepy book anymore, the old lady isn't paying attention to him. And it's almost like Pennywise, like, possessed her for a minute to watch him be afraid of the pictures in the book.
Yeah.
So weird and so good.
So weird. So good. So he finds these little, like, smoking Easter eggs. Which is like, he just read about the Easter egg explosion. Or the Easter explosion, right?
The Easter egg.
So he finds, he follows the trail of eggs. Like James Woods in The Piece of Candy. And...
Not E.T.
Ooh, piece of candy.
James Woods.
He's this at the best. So he follows the trail of Easter eggs, which lead him down to the stacks. Is that the appropriate term?
I think so.
The basement with all the books nobody really reads. People read them. I'm not being a jerk, but so he ends up down in the stacks where you hear what can only be described as creepy children laughter, running around the library, and you never really see anything. You, like, see a shadow of something running around the stacks. You just hear laughing.
Yeah.
So then he turns around and sees, like, feet at the top of the stairs. And it starts coming down towards him, and you realize it is a headless, charred body.
Yeah.
Just, like, walking towards him.
And the way it moves was pretty unsettling in, like, a Silent Hill kind of way. Like, it's...
a little distorted and unnatural. Yeah.
Jerky motions. And it's, like, dropping exploding Easter eggs.
Oh, I don't think I realized that.
Yeah. So it, like, drops a couple Easter eggs on the ground. And terrifies Ben. And when he goes to flee the stacks, he runs into the librarian.
And she's like, what is wrong with you? And he's just like, runs away.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't explain himself, just flees.
Yeah. And I think that's our first taste that, like, the adults in the vicinity will have no idea what on earth the children are seeing.
Absolutely. And so as he's running out of the library... he runs straight into Henry Bowers and his gang.
Yeah.
And they grab him, hold him. They are clearly going to hurt him. A car full of adults drive by and don't stop, don't do anything.
Yeah.
Which is another sign that the adults just don't care.
And as they're driving away, a red balloon is floating in the backseat of the car. So I think that kind of starts establishing that the reason the adults are so just weirdly apathetic about everything that's happening is because of Pennywise. Like, he's able to make them not see what's going on.
The Pennywise effect, if you will.
Yes, I like that. Yeah.
So, this is one of those moments when you're like, holy crap, this bully is a sociopath. Like, Henry Bowers starts to carve his name into Ben's stomach.
Yeah.
Like, he gets the full H in there, and his buddies are like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, shut up, I'm gonna carve my whole name in there. Like, his buddies clearly have empathy to some degree.
Yeah.
And they'll go along with a lot of his crap, but, like, even they thought this was too far, and he was just like, nope, it's fine.
Yeah.
And just keeps going.
They didn't think it strongly enough to stop him.
No, they just said something,
Yeah.
and you could tell they felt bad about it.
Yeah.
But they still went along with it. Probably out of fear a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So Ben somehow...
he kicks his legs up and kicks
that's right.
off Henry.
Kicks off Henry and rolls down a hill.
Yeah, sort of like backflips awesomely off of a bridge.
Yeah.
Rolls down the hill to where all of the other kids are playing in the river.
No, that's the miniseries.
Oh.
So in this one, the other kids went into the sewer. And And so it cuts to them. They're in the sewage pipes, and they're looking for Georgie.
Oh, that's right.
Because Bill is convinced that Georgie floated down these pipes and came out of this place, and his dad told him he was dumb and to leave it alone. And
at the Barrens.
Yes, the Barrens. So they're in this pipe, and they're all freaking out about, no, it's dirty, it's gross, whatever. And they come back out of the pipe.
Yeah.
And that's when they run into Ben. Mm-hmm. And then, but one of the bullies runs back into the pipe looking for Ben.
Right.
And
Patrick, the bully.
And he gets eaten by Pennywise.
Yeah.
In a really creepy, like, really awesome scene where he, like, gets chased by dead kids up into this grate that's covering one of the tunnels. And so he's stuck, and he's, like, trying to open the grate, you know, shaking on it, whatever. And he turns around, and there's a red balloon floating at him. And it gets right in front of his face, so all you see is this red balloon. And then it pops, and Pennywise is standing there.
Yeah.
So that was really well done. And unsettling for me.
Yeah.
So that was a good, scary moment.
Mm-hmm. Good jump scare moment, the balloon popping.
Absolutely. So he just gets straight up eaten. And then...
And you basically don't feel bad.
Yeah. And this whole point when they're like, the boys are off in the tunnel doing their thing. They're all scared, and Richie is cracking jokes, and all I could think of was Chandler from Friends when he's like, hi, I'm Chandler. I make jokes when I'm uncomfortable. Like, every moment that they're uncomfortable, he cracks some sarcastic comment.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a defense mechanism on his part, which I can relate to. But, so the kids are all off doing their thing, and they run into Ben, and he is just, the crap is beaten out of him, and they take him and try to bandage him up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they go to the pharmacy to buy, like, first aid supplies.
So they leave him in the alley with Richie, and the other three boys go inside and try and get a bunch of bandages. And they're like, we have $1. Like, we can't buy all this stuff. And they run into Bev, who's there for tampons, and totally embarrassed that she runs into the boys because she's holding a box of tampons. But she's like, okay, I'll help you, and goes to distract the pharmacist, who, like, creepily flirts with her. And that's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that scene was, like, uncomfortable is the only way to describe it, because she's kind of, like, flirting with him a little bit, like, just to keep him distracted and trick him into taking off his glasses. So she's like, oh, your glasses are so handsome. They make you look like Clark Kent. Can I put them on? And she puts the glasses on her face, and he's like, oh, now you look just like Lois Lane, in this leery way. And he's like 45 years old.
Older.
And she is obviously just going through puberty right now, because she's buying tampons for herself for the first time. Mm-hmm. And just so grossly uncomfortable. And that's totally what Jill was saying earlier about, like, how the worst part, the scariest parts are what the adults do. Like,
Yep. So she knocks something over, creates a distraction. The boys run out with all the supplies. She meets him in the alley, and she's like, hey, Ben from Soch, I know this kid. And goes to help, and he's clearly embarrassed because his stomach's all cut up, and she, like, joins their gang. Like, they're like, hey, we're going to the quarry tomorrow. And she's like, okay, good to know, and, like, walks away. Yeah. Totally playing it cool.
And one interesting thing about that scene, in the back, behind them, there's a mural of, like, some massacre that had happened in Derry before. And right over Ben's shoulder is Pennywise the Clown. Is his face on this mural from a piece of Derry's history.
Again, I don't think I noticed.
They hide Pennywise in so many places.
So many places. It's hard to hit them all.
Yeah, he's just stalking them through the whole movie. Like, something about these kids, he is obsessed with eating them. Maybe he senses they're a danger to him. I don't know. But.
Yeah. Oh, so then Bev goes home.
Yeah.
Which, talking about adults doing creepy things, her dad is a grade A creepy psycho.
Yeah, when she
walks in, the house is dark.
Yeah.
The TV is talking about how sewers are fun and you should go in them. And
that's one of my favorite parts of this movie. Every time there's a TV on,
it's talking about Pennywise or trying to convince people, like...
Yeah, it's like a children's TV show, like Lamb Chop, or the one that they filmed here. I can't remember the name of it, but you know, like where it's a children's variety show and there's an adult who's like the storybook teller and a bunch of kids and maybe some puppets, and the lady's like telling all the children, go to the sewers, clowns are great.
Yeah, I don't think I knew they filmed a children's show here.
I only know that because one of my coworkers and I ran into the host lady, Miss Maggie, while we were getting ice cream one time. And my coworker like freaked out. She was like, Miss Maggie, oh my god, you were like the lady on TV when I was a kid.
I don't even know who Miss Maggie is. I missed this whole...
Yeah, it was before our time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh. Anyway.
Anyway, yeah, the TV is talking about how you should go in sewers. Sewers are fun. And her creepy dad comes up and, like, sniffs her. And clearly, like, just in a really uncomfortable, like, hey, I'm gonna sniff your hair like a rapist.
Oh, ugh. So creepy.
And it was so unsettling, and nothing made my skin crawl more.
And the worst part about it is the context. Like, it's bad enough to be sniffed by anyone. Let's make that perfectly clear. But he's like, oh, what do you got there? And sees that she has tampons and realizes that she's menstruating. And then sniffs her. So.
Nope, not okay.
Yeah.
So she immediately goes in the bathroom and cuts off and he says, you're still my little girl, right? And she's like, yeah. And immediately goes in the bathroom and cuts off all her hair.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want to look like a girl anymore.
And she's, like, talking to her hair as she's cutting it. Like, she's definitely having... one of those moments that scars you for your whole entire life.
Yep. So they all go swimming at the quarry. They're all like, holy crap, Bev's a girl and she's hot. And there's a lot of oogling her happening.
There's a pretty great scene where that's all, like, she's sunbathing and they're all just, like, jaws dropped, unable to believe that there's a girl within 10 feet of them.
Yes. And she's sort of loving the attention, you can tell. And it's really clear that both Ben and Bill have a crush on her. And she is totally in love with Bill. So there's a nice love triangle setup happening. So Ben tells everyone that he has a lot of stuff he's collected about the town. And they decide they're all going to go see it. And he tells everybody that Derry has like 6 times the national average of murders. And that's just adults. Kids are worse.
Yeah.
So, like, living in Derry is just a you're probably going to die statistic.
Yeah.
So they all talk about that. They go to his room, and he has all of these, like, history stuff pasted all over his walls. And he and Bev share a moment where she, like, pulls back his door, and there's a New Kids on the Block poster, and he's like, he, like, shakes his head, and she shuts the door again.
Before anyone can see it.
Yeah. Oh, and when she finds him in the alley, they have this, like, New Kids on the Block moment where she walks up and, like, quotes a song to him, and he just looks at her like, don't do it.
Yeah. That's something this movie did so well, because there was so much tension, whether it was between, you know, the kids and creepy adults or the kids and Pennywise, but there were so many awesome, hilarious moments to cut that tension.
Yes. Which sort of like Ready or Not last week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where it sort of like tenses you up and lets you relax and then tenses you up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which almost makes it more tense for me.
I think so.
Like, because you let your guard down and then something happens and you're like, no, I was safe.
I was laughing, damn it.
Yeah. So they're all in his room checking out all the history stuff, and there's definitely like pictures of Pennywise hidden. Like, he talks about the founders were these 12 men who then disappeared, and it shows a picture of them, and Pennywise's face is in the picture.
Yeah, and that creeped me out good too.
Yeah.
The way that they drew it, it was totally those types of like lithographs, I guess you might call them. Of, like, you see them in the history books all the time with the founding fathers, and Pennywise was just like chilling
there. Yeah. So that was good and creepy. Then, it cuts to a new scene, a new day, and Eddie's riding his bike past this old abandoned house.
Yeah.
And runs into this homeless fella.
Who's basically Eddie's walking worst nightmare.
Yeah.
He's a leper, and there's pus coming out of, like, gashes on his face and stuff. And I think Eddie's worst nightmare is literally probably pus. Mm-hmm. He's such a germaphobe. Which you meet his mom and you understand why. Yeah. She's totally ingrained in him that the outside world will kill him.
Yeah. So, this leper, like, chases him, and he is freaking out. And he turns around, and there's Pennywise behind this pyramid of balloons.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, too.
Yeah.
So, the creepy house that he, sees it's all like burned out and creepy. There's a house a few miles north of us on 2nd West that
is haunted.
It has to be, right? Like,
oh no, yeah, Ghost Hunters have done an episode on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to watch it.
They do ghost tours all the time.
That house, like 100% just looking at it, it's haunted.
It's the Ansel Adams house, or Anson Adams?
Ansel Adams?
No, because Ansel Adams is the photographer. Something Adams. And I'll find the name and I'll send you the link. But yeah, there's a whole website dedicated to the creepiness of this house.
We'll post a picture on our Facebook, but it's like one of those things that you legit drive by it every time and you're like, there's something wrong with that house. And that's exactly the house that Eddie is riding his bike in front of. So he has his encounter.
Yes. And so then it cuts to Bev, and she's in her bathroom, and the bathroom sink starts talking to her. And she leans over the sink, and like hair comes out of the drain and grabs her and is like pulling her towards the sink drain. And Pennywise is saying things to her. I'm getting confused in my head about the old one versus the new one.
Yeah, well, like in this one, it's the voices of the dead children who are telling her, like, come down here. It's great.
So she's getting, and then all of a sudden, blood just explodes out of the sink. Like Dracula Dead and Loving It when they're staking the vampire. And Mel Brooks is like, hold on, and like hides behind the pillar because the other guy's just going to get soaked in blood. But like times a million.
Yeah.
Like the entire room is covered in blood.
And it was like a fire hose to her face. That cannot have been comfortable to film.
No, not at all. So there's just blood everywhere. She screams, of course. Her dad comes in, and she's like, the snake, sorry, the blood, I don't know what happened. And he's like, what are you talking about? He can't see any of it.
Yeah.
And she figures out pretty quick he can't see it, and she's just sitting there horrified.
And he just criticizes her short hair.
And he's just like, why'd you cut your hair? You look like a boy.
Yeah.
And I think she kind of goes, okay, that's what I wanted. Like... Which, by the way, she totally pulls off the short hair. She looks adorable.
I know. It makes me want to cut off my hair and make it all curly.
Don't do it.
I won't, because I won't look half that cute. But
I know. I can't pull it off.
She looks like Molly Ringwald.
Which they mention.
Like, Richie calls her Molly Ringwald, like an insult later.
Then it cuts to Bill, who has to go get something in his basement. Oh, no. He's, like, sleeping and hears noises.
He's asleep, and dripping water from the ceiling lands on his forehead and wakes him up.
Yeah.
So he goes to get a bucket to, like, catch the dripping water in. And some shadows, like, and sounds lead him into the same basement where Georgie had to get the wax earlier.
And the basement is full of water. And this might be my favorite scene. Like, this was the unsettling scene for me. So he walks into the basement that's full of water, and he's standing on the stairs, and you see Georgie in the corner, and his eyes are shiny. Yeah. And he's just standing there, and he's like, hey, Bill, don't be mad I lost my boat. And Bill's just like, I'm not mad. And he, like, talks to him. Like, they have a little conversation back and forth, and then Georgie walks out a little bit, and he just starts chanting, come down here with me, you'll float too. And he's just like laughing, you'll float too, you'll float too, you'll float too. And you look down and you see Pennywise's face just emerge from the water just a tiny bit, and you just see like his eyes up.
Yeah.
And then it like is clear he's using Georgie like a puppet.
Yeah.
Like he has his hand in his back and is making him talk, And then he comes out of the water and just rushes at Bill. Yeah. And Bill runs out of there just really quickly. But that's his encounter with Pennywise. And, that one just really, really unsettling. So that moment might get me later in the dark. So the next day, the boys all go to meet up with Beverly. And she's like, hey, I want to show you something. Come with me, and takes them into her bathroom.
I love this scene where, like, this is like the 4th of July big celebration, right?
Maybe.
So they're like meeting in an alley at first, and they're having a conversation, and she's like, I got something to show you. And in the background, just randomly, Richie is like grappling with some marching band student, like trying to get control of his tuba or whatever he is. He's playing, like blowing in it. So he's just kind of a shit. Like, everywhere he goes, he's like getting into trouble and being ridiculous.
Yeah. And so they decide somebody has to leave a lookout so her dad doesn't come home, because she's like, my dad will kill me if I have boys in the apartment. And so they nominate Richie to stay outside. And he's like, what? Why me? What am I supposed to do if her dad comes home? And they're like, do what you always do, talk. And he's like, yeah, I am good at that. And so he keeps a lookout. And they all go into the bathroom. And the boys are all immediately like, holy crap, what happened here? And she's like, you can see it. And she's so relieved. She thought she was crazy.
Yeah.
And they all help her clean up the blood. And then they all start talking about how, like, they've all seen Pennywise except Richie. And in true Richie style says, what, can only virgins see this crap? Why is that? Why have I not seen it? Yeah. And so they, like, all leave her house. And I think they're going off to the 4th of July celebration. And they come across Mike, who's getting attacked by Henry Bowers and his gang. Mm-hmm. And so they all stop and try to help him and end up throwing rocks.
Yeah, the apocalyptic rock fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they all throw rocks at the bullies. All the bullies run off and leave Henry, who they knock unconscious. I think they just leave him laying there. I don't know if he's unconscious. But
no loyalty among thieves, I guess.
Yeah.
But.
So his buddies all leave him, and they all grab Mike and are like, hey, you're part of the Losers Club now. Like, it's just that easy.
Yeah. Henry Bowers makes your life a living hell? Join us.
Yeah, right? And I think they say, hey, we all have this thing in common. We all hate him. So there's that. So they all become friends with Mike. And Ben starts, they like figure out, this might be the scene where Richie's arguing with the guy in the background. But they're all talking about how Pennywise seems to come back every 27 years.
Yes.
So there's a cycle. Mm-hmm. And they talk about all the big disasters and huge things that have happened every 27 years. And so now all the kids are disappearing. And it's been 27 years since the last thing.
Yeah.
And so they decide to look at the slideshow that Ben has.
Yeah, is it Ben's slideshow?
I think it's Ben's slides, because they pick up his slides. Oh, they're looking at a map.
Yeah.
Of the sewer system and where things are happening, like where they're seeing things, and they realize that the sewers connect everything, and they all connect to this one house.
Yeah, called the
So
Well
it's like
House.
they compare a map of Derry to the sewer system on the wall of Ben's garage. Mm-hmm. Or not Ben's garage, Bill's garage. Mm-hmm. And then the slideshow sort of takes on a life of its own and, like, zooms in on Bill's family and then zooms in on his mom, whose face is covered with her hair, who has red hair, and then her hair sort of disappears back in her head, and it's Pennywise.
I think this is, for me, the best scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's also the flashiest scene in the movie.
Absolutely
so
flashy.
Normally I'd be like, screw this scene, I can't even watch it. But the flashes are just far enough apart, and it just, the way it slowly reveals Pennywise's face emerging from his mother's hair, so well done. And then Pennywise himself, like, climbs out of the slideshow, and he is enormous because he's been projected larger than life on a wall, and starts attacking the kids while the projector is still, like, flashing.
So creepy. And so then they pull open the garage door and try to flee, and he disappears.
Yeah.
Which was cool. And yeah, again, really unsettling.
Yeah. Super well done, too.
Yes, absolutely. So they decide they're going to go to the house, this abandoned house, because they think that's where he lives, and that's how they're going to get him.
And it's the same house that Eddie had been cycling past, and the, like, leper chased him in.
The abandoned, creepy-looking house that you're just like, nothing good happens there. So they go there, and they decide, like, Bill's like, okay, let's go. We got to go in. We got to find him. We got to kill him. Like, this, we're done with this. Who's going to go with me? And everybody's like,
He's like, who wants to stay outside? And everyone but Beverly raises their hand.
Yeah.
Because she's, like, the badass of the group.
Right.
Yeah.
But they don't let her go in. So they decide that Bill and Richie and Eddie are going to go in. I don't know how they drew those straws, because I don't know why, like, Eddie was chosen to go in.
Poor Eddie.
I know, poor kid. He just is not a tough kid. So they walk in, and the house is, like, super creepy inside. There's cobwebs everywhere. There's leaves everywhere. So it's clear the house is not secure in any way. And Richie sees a missing poster with his face on it. And he's like, how could I be missing? I'm here. And that, like, really rattles him. And he hasn't seen Pennywise yet.
Yeah.
So he doesn't understand. He's like, how can I be missing? This isn't right.
Well, he saw him in the garage.
Oh, that's right. He saw him in the garage. So yeah, he's freaking out about this missing poster. And they're like, he's just trying to get to you. Like, that's all it is. And I found it interesting that, like, his face on a missing poster scared him more than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they don't talk about that very much, but that rattled him more than, like, anything else.
Yeah, the prospect. I think he's got a pretty solid fear of dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be. So, and he does talk about earlier in the movie that he's afraid of clowns.
I know, like, he's the only one to say it out loud,
just in general. Yeah. He gets trapped in a room full of clowns. Like, they all get separated.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't remember how.
So they go up. Bill's finally able to calm Richie down, and he's like, you're not missing. Like, you're right here in front of me. This is just Pennywise's trick. And so they go upstairs to the haunted house, to the second floor. And they get to the top of the stairs, and Bill and Richie are looking one direction. And Eddie is looking the other direction. And Bill and Richie kind of see one of the missing girls, Betty Ripson. Mm-hmm. She's, like, kind of hanging out of a bedroom and gets pulled back in. So they go that way. But Eddie sees something that pulls him towards the other end of the hallway.
That's right.
So they kind of get separated upstairs. And they use one of my favorite visual effects in the whole wide world when Eddie is looking down the hallway, where I don't know how they do it, but they make it look like the hallway is getting longer.
Oh, yeah. I love
that effect.
Mm-hmm.
So Eddie is immediately kind of disoriented, and when he turns back around, that leper is there again, that scary guy, and he's like, take your medicine, Eddie, and he sticks out his tongue, and Eddie's pill is sitting on his tongue. It's so gross.
Yep.
And so Eddie sort of, like, stumbles backwards and falls through the floor and lands on his back on the kitchen table downstairs and gets knocked out. So that's one down. Mm-hmm. And then Richie and Bill are upstairs. And I'm not honestly sure how they get separated from each other.
It might just be that Richie walks in a room and the door shuts, and so Bill can't get in.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. He walks into a room that's got all these, like, clown pictures on the walls. And like,
clown stuff. And there's definitely a clown with the original Pennywise.
Yes.
Like, outfit on.
Yeah.
The yellow suit with the red balls, and, I mean, very, very much him.
Yeah, Bill walks back to get Richie. Richie turns around and sees Bill through the open door, and the door slams shut. And they're separated. And a little coffin sort of, like, comes up out of the ground. Mm-hmm. And there's, like, a scary clown scaring poor Richie, and the coffee. The coffin lid opens, and it's got that same missing poster again. But now it has, like, red painting that says found. And a puppet that looks like Richie, like a ventriloquist dummy.
Richie.
Yeah, with maggots and stuff in it is sitting in there. And he's like, nope.
Yeah. And he just nopes right out of there and slams that lid shut and goes to get out of the room. And Pennywise leaps at him.
Yeah. Oh, the way Pennywise is, like, standing on top of that coffin.
It's very animalistic.
Yeah.
Like, he's perched on top of this coffin.
Like a crazed, scary bird. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So he, like, leaps at him. Bill knocks down the door, grabs him, and gets out of there.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get to Eddie.
Yes. And Pennywise is pretending to be Eddie. That's how it is. Pennywise lures... Richie into that scary clown room by pretending to be Eddie playing hide and seek. Mm-hmm. And he's, like, pretending to be Eddie inside of a mattress. There's all kinds of gross stuff. Mm-hmm. And my favorite non-scary scene of the movie, they end up in a bedroom that has 3 doors in it. And one of them says, not scary at all. And the one on the right says, very scary. Yeah. And the one in the middle just says, scary?
Yeah.
And that's what slays me, because I keep thinking of the scary door from Futurama. Like, Their version of the Twilight Zone.
Yes.
Anyway.
So they, of course, open the not scary door.
Yeah.
And there's like half a girl hanging in a closet.
Yeah, half of Betty rips them.
Yeah. And so they're like, slam the door, like, what do you mean not scary at all? That's terrifying. And then they hear Eddie.
Yes.
Getting attacked. So Pennywise is now attacking Eddie.
Oh, this is the scene that got Kelly good.
Yeah.
Eddie comes to in the kitchen downstairs, and in front of him is a very old-looking icebox. And the icebox door opens, and Pennywise is, like, inside of it all folded up and twisted, and he comes out of the refrigerator kind of, like, untwisting himself as he goes.
Completely unnatural emerging from this...
Yeah.
Not okay.
It looks like an insect, like, untwisting itself somewhere. It's super gross.
Which I was reading the trivia at some point in the movie, and I don't remember when it was. And it said that to film that scene, they actually did it backwards. Oh. And so they tried to film him coming out, and they just couldn't get it to work. And he was on some kind of harness. And so they ended up, like, pushing him in it backwards, and then he folded himself in.
So that's why it looks so unnatural.
Why it looks so unnatural, is because they played it out backwards of him, like, folding himself into the icebox.
It's
so
one of the more unsettling
very
things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. So he's attacking Eddie and breaks his arm. Mm-hmm. And it's super gross.
It's like... It almost looked like in Harry Potter when he loses the bones in his arm and it becomes this rubber... Yeah. Like, it was bent in such a round way. It was really interesting to me. Yeah. But so the boys are upstairs. They figure out, okay, this is just Pennywise. Let's be brave. Let's go through. And as they decide they're just going to be brave and barrel through the door with the hanging half woman, it, like, throws Pennywise off. And he, like, watches them like, oh, crap, they're not scared anymore.
Yeah. It's like you can feel the lack of their fear.
Yeah. So they come barreling down to save Eddie, and they hit him with something.
Yeah. And then Beverly comes in because she hears what's going on.
Oh, and she full-on stabs him through the head.
With, like, a fireplace poker.
Yeah.
Proving yet again that she's a badass.
Yeah. Like, doesn't hesitate for a second and just stabs him straight through the head, which then he retreats and crawls into this well.
Yeah, in the basement, which I guess is why it's called the well house.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, like, a thing. Like, let's build a house around this old well. Who knows?
It doesn't make any sense to me. That's how the ring happens. So...
Nothing good comes out of or goes into wells.
Just saying.
So after that, they've sustained enough injuries, specifically Eddie's broken arm, that they have to get adult help. And his mom is livid and wearing the world's most 80s outfit ever.
Tracksuit.
Yeah, 80s pink tracksuit with, like, a pattern that you might see on a couch in the 80s or 90s across the shoulders.
She's driving a Pinto, did that what we decided? Or Gremlin.
Some
old
you know what, I think
car.
It was a Pinto. Yeah, but anyway, some old car that they don't make anymore for a lot of reasons. And she's just furious. And she's like, you guys, this is all your fault. Everyone's pretty freaked out at this point. Like, Stan is having none of it. He doesn't want anything more to do with this endeavor. And so, basically, the events at the well house were so traumatic that it forces the group to splinter.
Richie, like, freaks out and says some really awful things about Georgie. Well, I mean, like, Bill won't admit that he's dead. Like, he just keeps saying, he's missing. And Richie's like, he's dead, face facts. And Bill punches him.
Yeah.
So the whole group just kind of falls apart.
Yeah. Beverly is trying to convince them to stay together. She's like, look, the reason we survived in there, the reason we were able to harm him is because we were all together. We were all united. But it's too much for them to handle. They can't take it. Yeah, so they break apart. There's a little montage of them doing their own thing.
Being alone and sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. Richie does go to Stan's bar mitzvah, but he's like the only one that does.
Mm-hmm. Which they were, I think, best friends before. So that makes sense that they would still.
And are Bill and Beverly hanging out?
I don't think so, but he goes to find her. And in the meantime, Beverly's dad attacks her.
Yes.
And she knocks him out and tries to run away, and Pennywise gets her.
Well, I don't know if she knocks him out. I think she might kill him. I think he might be dead. They don't say it.
They don't say, but
he possible. He has like a creepy moment to the max where he like attacks her and has her on her back, and he's like pinned her. And it's very sexual and gross. And she, like, kicks him off of her and runs into the bathroom. And he follows her in there and opens up the shower curtain. And right when he does, she clocks him with the top of the toilet, like the toilet bowl or toilet tank lid. And it just, like, shatters and he falls backwards and is bleeding all over the place. And when Bill comes in to find her later, he's still there, not moving. And there's an awful lot of blood from that head wound.
That's true.
Yeah.
They don't ever say.
Yeah, they don't
Hard to say.
Maybe they'll address it in the next one.
So Pennywise takes her. So Bill comes looking for her because he loves her. And can't find her. And in blood in her bedroom, it says something about, come get her, I have her.
It says, you'll die if you try.
Which Tim Curry chanted a lot in the original.
Yeah.
You'll die if you try. So he figures out pretty quickly, okay, Pennywise has her, but they keep calling it has her. So he immediately runs, finds Richie, and he's like, it has Beverly. She's like, what has Beverly? And then he realizes, oh crap. And they all gather up together. Of course, we have to go to Beverly. And they go to the sewer.
And in the meantime, there's kind of a heartbreaking scene with Henry Bowers, the bully, and his dad. He's having, like, target practice with his little gang of thugs, minus one because Patrick got eaten in the sewer.
Right.
And they're, like, shooting bottles of liquor.
About to shoot a cat.
Yeah, about to shoot a cat. His lame friends are not standing up to him.
No.
And his dad comes outside and finds them playing with his gun and, like, starts shooting at the ground in front of Henry and tells his friends, see how fast a paper man crumbles when he's confronted with a little fear. So you can tell he's super abusive to Henry, and that might be why Henry acts the way that he does. So then Henry sees a red balloon floating from the mailbox, and he goes to look inside, and he finds the knife that he had previously lost in his encounter with Ben when he was trying to, like, carve the H onto his. So he finds the knife, and he goes inside, and his dad is asleep.
And it's one of those knives that, like, you push a button and it pops out the top.
Yeah, is that called a switchblade?
So not like a switchblade, because a switchblade pops out the side, I think.
Isn't that a butterfly knife?
Oh.
Matt would know. Matt, tell us if we're wrong. I think it's a switchblade.
Kind of knife is a knife. Switchblade,
like,
makes sense. Yeah, it pops out the top. But it, like, every switchblade I've ever seen has, like, a end on it, you know, and this one was like it looked like a paper cutter, but then you push the button and it's a huge long knife.
Yeah.
Hilt, that was the word I'm looking for. Every switchblade I've seen has some sort of hilt.
Oh yeah.
And this one didn't have one.
Yeah, it looked pretty vicious.
It was interesting. So he walks in and the TV is chanting, kill him all.
Yeah,
like,
it's that weird children's program again, going on and all the kids how great clowns are.
Yeah. Clowns are the best and blah, blah, blah. And then all the kids start chanting, kill him, kill him, kill him. And he walks up to his unconscious dad who's sleeping, drunk, I'm not sure, and sticks the knife up to his neck and pushes the button. So just straight into his carotid artery. He bleeds out so quickly.
Yeah.
Just gushing blood. So...
And Pennywise appears on the TV screen and is basically like, good job,
now kill everybody else. Yeah.
And they don't show it, but I read that there's a deleted scene that they intended to go right after that, where Henry then goes outside and kills his two remaining buddies. And they deleted it for the theatrical version and the one that we rented. But I did hear that the director's going to do a supercut with both movies together and put in a bunch of deleted stuff.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe we'll get like a Lord of the Rings thing where you watch the super extended versions for all the good stuff.
In like 3 sections, because it'll be 9 hours long.
12 laser discs.
Yeah.
So they definitely never show the friends again throughout the movie. Henry arrives at the well house by himself, driving his friend's Trans Am or whatever that sports car is. And he follows the kids into the well house.
And so the kids, everyone but Mike, goes down in the well.
Yeah.
And then Henry attacks, and they had like a rope that got knocked down.
Yeah, they had a rope that they were using to kind of like climb down into the well, and Henry pulls it up so they're trapped down there.
Yeah.
And then he starts taunting Mike and saying, like, you know, it's too bad your parents died in that fire. Like, I'm upset that it wasn't me that killed them.
Yeah.
And he attacks Mike and is trying to, like, stab him and trying to shoot him with the crazy sheep killing gun that Mike has. And Mike ends up kicking him, so he falls backwards into the well and just, like, drops past all the other kids and falls an unknown distance.
Which is very different from the miniseries where he's been hospitalized because he tells everyone about Pennywise. And so he's in an insane asylum and comes to attack him later. Anyway, I'm interested to see how that plays out in the second half, if he's just done.
Well, they did announce that he was cast.
Yeah.
So he will appear in the second film.
Somehow he's gotta...
Maybe he will be in an insane asylum again. Like, maybe he somehow survives the fall and then tells everyone about the clown that made him kill his dad. Because what else is he gonna say?
Right. So anyway, he's gone. They all climb down into the well. They find Beverly, and she's, like, floating.
Oh, yeah. Because there was a quick scene earlier where... super weird. She wakes up in the sewer... And she stands up and there's this huge pile of garbage, like old crap that must have just washed down into the sewers. And all the dead children are floating around it. So that we all float down here thing is totally true. They're really floating. And then this kind of cart thing with a clown design on it that Ben had seen earlier in a photo, the front falls open and Pennywise does this really unsettling, weird dance in it. That by itself is kind of a little bit cheesy, to be honest. And I've seen a lot of GIFs online or, like, other videos where they've put stupid music behind him and he's just dancing weirdly.
Yeah.
But if that happened in real life, like, if you're, like, standing on a street corner and there's, like, a guy in a clown costume, like, 15 feet away from you and he's doing that same dance, it would be weird.
Really, really unsettling. If you want to see it, look it up on YouTube. Because I'm sure, like she said, there's all kinds of versions with different music. So, yeah, definitely creepy.
So... he comes out with the little dance, and she tells him, you can do whatever you want. I'm not afraid of you. And he says, well, you will be. And he opens his creepy shark mouth super wide, like the widest it's opened the whole movie. And the light starts glowing from his throat, and she looks into the dead lights. And her eyes cloud over, and she starts floating.
Yeah. So they find her. She's floating. And Bill walks in and sees her first, and he's like, I'll be right back, and goes looking. He wants to find Georgie.
Yeah.
And so the other boys come in, and they find Beverly, and they start trying to pull her down. And he goes off and finds Georgie, who then sort of gives him a hard time.
Yeah. Georgie's, like, trying to convince him, I just want to go home. And it's pretty sweet. Bill's crying, and he's like, I want nothing more than for you to come home, too.
Right. It's a whole super emotional thing. And then he's like, I can't come home. You let him kill me. Like, it's this whole big deal. And then...
Bill's like, yeah, I wish you could come home, but you can't because you're dead. And he shoots him in the face with that sheep-killing gun. Which sucks. Like, that would be incredibly hard. So Georgie's on the floor and then starts, like, twitching, and Pennywise emerges from Georgie's body.
Which is just really creepy and weird.
Yeah.
But they pull Bev down, and she's floating, and they can't get her to come out of her trance, so Ben kisses her, and that wakes her up.
Yeah, like a total Sleeping Beauty thing.
And then he had written her this poem earlier that I have known for most of my entire life that's like, your heart is... Your hair is winter fire, January embers. My heart burns there too. And so she wakes up and she says something like, January embers. And he's like, my heart burns there too. And she's like, oh, it was you. And she thought it was Bill this whole time. And so she definitely has that whole like, moment. And, you know, Disney princess style. He has to kiss her true love and wake her up.
Which is weird that it worked.
Yeah. Those things only happen in Disney movies, and apparently this one. So, she wakes up, they all witness this whole Georgie fiasco, and Pennywise emerges, and they kind of circle around him, and he starts going at them each one by one and becoming the thing they fear. Yeah. So, he's Bev's dad and a spider for Mike.
Yeah, or a crab or something. He had, like,
something
pokey legs.
I assumed spider because that's my fear.
Oh, and to Mike, too, like, out of his mouth come all these burned arms and stuff.
Right. And then he's the painting lady.
For Stan.
Is he just a clown for Richie?
I can't remember. He's like a mummy for Ben, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, he assumes a lot of scary forms. It's, again, kind of reminiscent of Harry Potter, where it's like the boggart
just
turning
becomes
into
whatever.
Scary.
And he does say that line, I'll feast on your flesh as I feed on your fear.
Yeah.
So, like, clearly he just wants them to be scared so that he can eat them.
Yeah.
And they all get brave and decide they're going to fight back. And Richie has one of my favorite moments of his in the whole movie where he's, like, yelling at Bill, and he's like, I hate you, Bill. He's like, you took me into the sewer, and I had to walk in shit water, and then
You punched me in the
face, and now I have to fight this stupid clown, and hits the clown across the face.
With a baseball
bat.
Yeah.
Well, and right before that, Pennywise tells them all, like, either I can kill you all, or you can all leave, and I'll just eat Bill.
Yeah.
And that's when Richie's like, he makes it seem like he's going to leave. You know, like, he's like, you know what, Bill? You punched me in the face. And, and then he hits Pennywise in the face. And they all start fighting and hitting the clown. And as they get stronger, he clearly gets weaker and can't fight back. So he crawls into a well inside a well, another hole. And like falls back and explodes as he falls into this hole.
Yeah, he starts like breaking apart.
Like peeling face off, kind of.
But there's nothing inside.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah.
But, so they defeat him for now. Mm-hmm. And then there's a scene of them all sitting on the riverbank and they're all kind of bandaged up. For some reason, Stan is bandaged up like Jacob Marley. Like he's got these bandages around his head.
That's because when they were in the tunnels, he got attacked by Pennywise. And Pennywise was the lady and attacked him in the tunnels. And his whole, like, teeth were around his face.
Oh,
and he was like sucking on his face. Like, yes, so he had like teeth wounds all over his face.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So
horrifying.
They're all bandaged up and they're kind of recovering from what happened. And Bill stands up and is like, all right, just in case he comes back, we all have to swear a vow right now that if he comes back in 27 years, we'll come back too. Mm-hmm. And they all cut their hands and hold hands in a circle.
Hold bloody hands.
Bloody hands, which even Eddie does. Even Eddie, who earlier had been like ranting about bloodborne diseases.
And AIDS.
Yeah.
Which, the AIDS epidemic was a thing that everyone was terrified of AIDS in the late 80s.
So they all kind of do that and promise that they'll come back. Mm-hmm. And then the group breaks up.
And they all one by one leave. Yeah. And it leaves just Bill and Beverly. And Beverly says, I'm going to go stay with my aunt. She says I can stay with her as long as I want. So basically she says, I'm out. I'm not going to see you anymore.
But she says the best line that kind of makes you want to cry a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I might cry. But she says, I never felt like a loser when I was with all of you.
Yeah.
And that's like the best thing that you can hope for from your friends. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get any better than that.
Agreed.
So.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No matter what other people think. Mm-hmm. If you make each other feel great, that's what matters.
Yeah.
Love each other, people. That's what this movie's about.
It truly is a movie about friendship. And it really is.
It really is.
Like friendship overcomes all and you're stronger together.
Mm-hmm. She starts walking away and Bill's like, this is my moment. And chases her down and gives her a kiss. Yeah. And with her bloody hand, she caresses his face. Why this was chosen to be a thing? She has another hand. So she walks away. And he's standing there with this bloody handprint on his face. And he's just like,
roll credits.
Yeah. Cool. That happened.
Yeah.
So that docked part of it for me because I was like, why is the bloody hand part of this? gross. It's like when people kiss after like a disaster movie or something, and one of them's like bleeding from their nose or their mouth, and then they kiss, and you're like, why? Wipe it off first. Yes. Like, I know. No. Nope. Kiss them on the forehead. It's fine. You don't have to.
Do the Young Frankenstein taffeta, darling, if you're covered in blood from head to toe.
Rub your elbows. Ridiculous. Yeah. So, bloody handprint on the neck. Roll credits. So, it definitely set you up for it part 2.
Yeah. Especially because it flashes the title of the movie, It, and then chapter 1 fades in.
Which I was trying to remember. I don't think they announced that they were going to split it into 2 parts until this movie came out. Am I right or wrong about that?
I honestly can't remember.
I can't remember either. But it kind of felt like they didn't announce it until after. So you see that chapter 1 when it first came out, and then you were like, oh, there's going to be more.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you totally want more.
Yeah.
Because it was great.
It was fantastic, and it definitely leaves you wanting more. So... I'm really excited about part 2, and mostly because I am super in love with James McAvoy, even though he's not talking with his accent, which is sad.
And does he play grown-up Bill?
He sure does.
Okay, see, I'm most excited for Bill Hader, who plays grown-up Richie, because I adore Bill Hader and everything that he's in. He's amazing.
Which will also be fantastic. I am totally on board for that. So, it'll be great. We're excited, and we can't wait to tell you guys all about it.
Yeah, so
stay tuned for
It Chapter 2 next
Scream
week.
Girl Squad Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Remember, friendship makes the world go round. Helps you defeat evil clowns. So.
Remember, save the Texas Prairie Chicken. All right.
What?